Welcome to NeoUnrealist. There's an old saying among prosecutors, and you can debate whether it's a true statement or not, but it goes something like, never ask a question that you don't already know the answer to. When the Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee, they hired Maricopa County Prosecutor Rachel Mitchell to do the questioning of Supreme Court nominee Judge Brett Kavanaugh, her accuser Christine Blasey Ford, a lot of people thought that ploy fell flat. That Mitchell's questions and questioning, that they were meandering and they didn't have any discernible purpose. They didn't really lead anywhere. In the last half day or so, it would appear I'm going to have to reassess that conclusion because it might be inaccurate. In a bombshell letter, just out, not even a day ago, more like 12, 13 hours ago as of this recording, an ex-boyfriend of Christine Blasey Ford, a man whose name is redacted in the letter, but who says he was a friend of hers starting from 1990, thereabouts, and entered a romantic relationship with her for 6 years, from 1992 to 1998. He claims that during the time they were dating, Dr. Ford lived with her best friend, a woman named Monica, middle initial L, McLean, and that he also lived with Christine Blasey Ford for a time in that time period from 1992 to 1998. So clearly this is a guy that knew her very well at the time. It was his understanding that her friend Monica McLean was interviewing for a job with the FBI in the U.S. Justice Department, which is true. Monica McLean, if it did in fact eventually go to work for the government in that capacity. The ex-boyfriend says that he personally witnessed Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, then just Dr. Christine Blasey. He personally witnessed her explain to McLean in detail what to expect from a polygraph test, a procedure, how polygraphs work, and how to be less nervous about the test. Basically, she was coaching her. He says she had this knowledge because clearly her background in psychology. And he also goes on to say, you know, he goes on to say other minor things in the letter about him visiting her in Hawaii after she moved there sometime around 1998, where he says they maintained a long-distance relationship. And on that trip, they traveled around the Hawaiian Islands on a small propeller plane. And that Christine Blasey Ford never indicated any fear of flying to him. He also refutes her testimony about being claustrophobic and afraid of close quarters, tight spaces, or places with only one exit. In fact, he says he helped her find a place to live in California, and that when she ended up living there, it was a very small 500 square foot house with one door. Said she never had a problem. He says that he broke up with Christine Blasey Ford when he learned that while she was in Hawaii, she cheated on him. And he took her off his credit card, which he was sharing with her. And he says that about a year later, she charged $600 to his card without his authorization, which caused him to confront her. And he says she lied about it when he confronted her and denied having used the card, until he threatened to involve the card's fraud prevention department, get them to investigate, and then she confessed to making the charges. He then says that his last contact he had with Ford was when she briefly contacted him in 2002, and he says he hadn't heard of her since then, hadn't thought about her much, until her story came out in the Washington Post in September. Now, the significance of this letter isn't the stuff about the fear of flying or the fear of tight spaces or places with an exit. That's certainly interesting, as it would seem to refute some of the claims that Christine Blasey Ford and her representatives made. Shows that she may have lied or exaggerated about those things. The real problem is the stuff about Dr. Ford coaching her friend Monica McLean. Monica McLean went to school with Christine Blasey Ford, same class of 1984 at Holton Arms in Maryland. Monica McLean worked for the Department of Justice for 24 years, leaving in 2016, just when President Trump was taking office, and now does independent consulting work based in Washington, D.C. We now learn that Chuck Grassley has written a letter to Christine Blasey Ford's legal team renewing his request for her therapist notes, all audio or video recordings of her polygraph examination by Mr. Hannafin, and all written, audio, visual, or electronic materials relating to her allegations against Kavanaugh. These two letters, in combination, released the same day, now make it clear that what Mitchell was going for when she asked Ford at the hearing under penalty of felony for lying to Congress, have you ever given tips or advice to somebody who was looking to take a polygraph test? And Ford answered, never. Mitchell then asked her a second time, making her question even more precise, and for the second time she uses the word ever, in case that it was misunderstood or not heard the first time. Ever. Have you ever had discussions with anyone besides your attorneys on how to take a polygraph? Ford answers yet again, never. Ford even expanded on her answers a little, saying that she was, quote, scared of the polygraph test and didn't expect it to be as long as it was going to be. People, her polygraph test consisted of her writing out a one-page summary of her story, and the polygraph test itself consisted of a grand total of 2. Yes, count them, 2 yes or no questions to the effect of, hey, did you lie and did you make this up? That was it. 2 questions, yes or no. It appears now that Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, if her boyfriend is telling the truth, we have no reason to think not. I mean, this is an innocuous thing and he doesn't want to be involved apparently. That she lied under oath to Congress about a material fact. Christine Blasey Ford coached her friend Monica McLean in the 1990s to prepare her for an FBI polygraph, if the boyfriend is to be believed. Well, here's where things get really interesting, as if it's, not crazy enough that she probably perjured herself and lied to Congress, a penalty I think you can get up to 5 years in prison for that. But anyway, internet super sleuth Sundance over at Conservative Treehouse has jumped on the electronic trail, or footprint, or lack thereof, of Monica McLean. So it appears like McLean, who, in case you didn't know, was one of the 17 original Christine Blasey Ford supporters signing that letter written by 17 Holton Arms class of 1984 classmates to support Ford to the Congress, dated September 17th. So she's been on this from the beginning. And you're going to see how the significance of this. McLean was admitted to the California Bar Association as a lawyer in 1992. We know that as of June of the year 2000, she was Associate Division Counsel at the FBI field office in Los Angeles. And this fits with the ex-boyfriend's testimony of having known Monica McLean during the time period 1992 to 1998, while he was Dr. Ford's boyfriend, at some points living with her, and his understanding that she was interviewing to work for the FBI. Sometime after the year 2000, in the early aughts, she transfers to the Southern District of New York FBI field office in Lower Manhattan. And you can find evidence of her being a Public Information Office spokesperson in 2008 in an article, and as late as December 2009 in this letterhead, working under Preet Bharara when he was a U.S. Attorney for the Southern District. Now, I cropped this photo of Monica McLean that was taken at a wine tasting on April 2nd of 2016 in Rehoboth Beach, the Teller Wines Expo. Now, remember that location, Rehoboth Beach. I've been through there many times over the course of years, having vacation nearby in Bethany Beach, so I'm a little familiar with the area. Remember, another part of Rachel Mitchell's questioning of Dr. Ford, when she asked her where she was when she wrote her now infamous letter that Senator Dianne Feinstein withheld from the committee for 6 weeks, she said that she traveled to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware on July 26th and wrote the letter there in Rehoboth, Delaware on July 30th. That's the date of the letter. Recall also, she said she wrote the letter at the prompting of her, quote, beach friends, who were telling her what to do, that she should get a lawyer, go to the media, etc. Well, what lifelong friend of Christine Blasey Ford also just so happens to live in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Remember the picture where it was taken? A woman who she was in the same class in high school, all 4 years of high school with. The same woman who lived with her for years after high school ended when she moved to the West Coast. A woman who she, according to her boyfriend at the time, Christine Blasey Ford, was coaching to prepare her for a polygraph test to interview and get a job at the FBI. A woman who almost all trace of her on the internet disappears after 2009 as if it were recently scrubbed, just like Christine Blasey Ford's internet presence was scrubbed prior to her coming out publicly to the Washington Post. A woman who we now know lives in the very same Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, that Christine Blasey Ford was staying at during the end of July when she wrote her letter to Congresswoman Ann Eshoo. Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, it's a summer resort town of only about 1,000 permanent residents. It's a small place who actually live there as their primary residence. And during the summer tourism season, the population for a few months swells up to maybe, 25,000 people. But even then, if you've ever been there, even in the summer season, it's a sleepy place. Everybody knows everybody, and it's got only a 1 mile long boardwalk, one main street of any significance, Rehoboth Avenue. This next part may be coincidental, but given that it appears Monica McLean, she never got married, and the fact that Rehoboth Beach has something of a reputation as a mid-Atlantic region mecca for the LGBT crowd, a lot of lesbians chilling out around North Shore Beach, so maybe there's something there. Is it possible that during those 4 days before Christine Blasey Ford wrote her letter accusing Brett Kavanaugh of groping her over her clothes in the bedroom in 1982, maybe she was even staying with her former high school classmate, her best friend, and longtime roommate, Monica McLean? Now, we know Ford testified under oath that she was following the advice of her, quote, beach friends at that time, as they told her what to do. Now, if it turns out that after 2009, Monica McLean transferred from the Southern District of New York office of the FBI and was working out of Washington, D.C., contemporaneous with Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and the small group of anti-Trump resistors in the D.C. FBI headquarters, oh boy! Can it be any coincidence that while Feinstein recommended Ford enlist the legal services of Deborah Katz, Ford also somehow winds up taking on, of all the tens of thousands of lawyers who work in Washington, D.C., Andrew McCabe's lawyer? You know anyone else in Christine Ford's circle of, quote, beach friends who might know, the attorney that Andrew McCabe is using, who also might know an ex-FBI polygraph expert like Hannafin to give her a polygraph test? Like maybe somebody who worked over 20 years in the FBI and retired just when Trump was taking over, suspiciously. Could Monica McLean be the one who spent that week at the end of July, before this ever came out, before even Dianne Feinstein ever heard of Christine Blasey Ford, pushing and cajoling Christine Blasey Ford to write that letter and weaponize her friend on behalf of herself and her fellow FBI Trump haters, Andrew McCabe and company? I mean, that's if she was out of the D.C. field office. We don't know because, you can't find anything about her on the internet in recent years. Now, I want the FBI to interview Monica McLean, of course, and ask her point blank, did Christine Blasey Ford coach her on taking the polygraph tests, and perjure herself, basically, lie to Congress? But more importantly, find out where she worked and with who in her final few years in the FBI, and if there's any connection with the Andrew McCabe cell of the deep state. I wonder why a Google News search of the name Monica McLean comes up empty today. As if the mainstream media, it's like they don't have curiosity or interest in this at all. Considering that at the very least, she's the only one who could, corroborate or refute Ford having perjured herself to Congress, and at worst, if she was in the D.C. office, might be able to connect the dots to the deep state conspirators in the McCabe group. Anyway, last thing on this also from the conservative treehouse. Who is that with the creepy porn lawyer in that 2018 photo? Could that be Monica McLean? It's not for certain, but there does seem to be some resemblance, no? That's all for this NeoUnrealist. Like the video, comment, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to keep up with the new video content. Follow the links below to Patreon or PayPal if you want to support the channel monetarily, or just use the tip pledge button if you're watching on BitChute. The last thing I'm going to say is, if you're still around to hear this, wow, that's some Ferris Bueller day off shit.